Hi, this is Anita with 5 Minutes with Art. Perhaps no other artist that has captured the world as Pablo Picasso. And he definitely is considered one of the great artists of all times. But one thing that a lot of people may not realize about him is that he actually painted a lot of self-portraits. And the self-portraits themselves is a great study of the evolution of his art. A little bit about Picasso is he was born in 1881 in Spain. And, his name was Pablo Diego Jose Francisco de Paula Juan. It just goes on and on and on and on. Picasso. There's like a list of like 20 names that they've given him. But he's basically known as Pablo Picasso. In his formative years, even when he was young, he started painting his self-portraits. In fact, at the age of 13, he painted his first self-portrait called Self-Portrait in a Cap. But then you can go on and you fast forward to 1901, he paints his other self-portrait, which is Joe Picasso. And it kind of, shows a very different type of look than some of his first one. It's kind of a bit sobering. And then you fast forward a little bit more to 1906 and you see a whole completely different self-portrait. In fact, his face is not quite uniform. Its body looks bigger than the face. It's a very different looking self-portrait than the previous ones. And then you begin to see that in 1917, when the world began to return more to order, there was more order in the world, World War I, was over, that he begins to engage in more traditional portraiture. So, you can see where he's going in and out of these different types of styles. By 1972, you can see this artistic completeness in all of his different self-portraits. That's what makes it so interesting in analyzing his self-portraits. You can see them from this sort of psychological perspective that there's, emotion that's brought into each one of them. He, explores in them some of the vulnerability and the depression. He was seeking refuge in art during the Blue period. He painted several self-portraits that were inspired by the melancholy, almost like the sort of like depressive state. The subjects had sorrow, dimly lit settings. They were bearing eerie resemblances to the painter himself. And this kind of is a little bit of a glimpse into Picasso and maybe his mental state during this time. The African art period, he had, experimentation and redefinition. So you could see where he started, this period to begin to be able to experiment a bit more and to redefine his art a bit more. You can see after World War I and after the world started becoming a little bit more in order, that he began to return to the softer, more mature, expressionism that than some of his earlier maybe self-portraits when he felt there was more chaos, more disorder after World War I. It's really interesting that you can really see a lot of Picasso and his life and his nature and his psychology and, maybe a bit of what he was thinking as we look at his art and in particular his own self-portraits of himself. As his life began to take new turns, as he began to experience new things, so did also his self-portraits. So that's what makes the study of these so interesting and so unique. So he was able to leave us this great legacy of not only his work himself, but also these self-portraits of what he did. His reinterpretation of himself, and even a little bit of his own wit and sense of humor comes out in all of these, as can maybe some of his depressive state, feeling blue, feeling melancholy, maybe how he felt about the world and about the world views and things that were happening around him. His struggle with isolation, his struggle with despair can all be shown in these self-portraits. And that's one reason why Picasso today remains an important artist, is because of the fact that he really put himself into his artwork. And you can really see this evident as you study many of his self-portraits. We have a blog post that we've written on this that actually our writer, James Johnson, wrote on it, which is a very good blog post called The Intriguing Self-Portraits of Pablo Picasso. If you have an opportunity, I invite you to go there, check it out, learn more about his self-portraits, learn more about this artist, and learn more about his artwork itself. Thank you so much for listening. We thank you for being part of our community. We thank you for joining with us. Check out our YouTube channel. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Subscribe to our blog post. We'd love to have you part of our community. We'd like to thank you, our listeners, and thank all those who helped make the technical aspect of this all happen and come together, because heaven knows if it was left up to me, it probably wouldn't happen. So thank you all so much.